What the hell's going on over in D.C. lately?
It's gone crazy, of course, and that's appropriate because the seat of government should never have stability, apparently. So it's gotten a little bit wild.
So let's talk about tomorrow. We're going to have some Electoral College fun. What should we expect tomorrow? What are you expecting tomorrow?
So I'm expecting a long day tomorrow. We've been working with senators, and you need a House member and a senator to object in order to get to the debate portion. I expect the Democrats are going to try to have some shenanigans to try to prevent that from happening, but I expect we're going to have various debates. Arizona will be the first state debated because they go by alphabetical order. And so we're right at the top, and we'll go in. Each side gets an hour to debate their position, and then you have a vote. And you got to get a vote out of both houses to set aside those electors, the votes of those electors. And that's a tough order because the Democrats control the House. They've just got more people. I mean, even though Nancy Pelosi didn't even get a majority of the votes, the odds are that we won't get the Democrats. And then you've got a number of Republicans, probably 30 or 40, that are not going to vote with us as well in the House. And in the Senate, oh my goodness, if they get 20 votes to not seat the electors, I'd be happy that'd be high, exceed my expectations, if you want the truth.
So when people say, well, Congressman Biggs, there's no proof of any sort of hijinks that anyone's proven, what do you tell them?
I've written 3 single-spaced pages of what's there. So I always start off with this. First of all, you have a constitutional issue because the legislature sets the place, time, and manner of federal elections, including registering of voter deadlines. We had a federal court, Ninth Circuit, who willy-nilly, arbitrarily extended the deadline for registering voters past the deadline that the legislature set. And they basically don't give a real reason why other than, oh, well, it's the year of COVID, blah, blah, blah. That was arbitrary, and it was unconstitutional, and it allowed tens and tens of thousands of people to register who should not have voted in that last election. That's number one. Number two, when you say that there's no evidence, we have all kinds of evidence, but we've never been able to argue it substantively. And the reason is because courts have dismissed all these cases procedurally. And don't forget, you got the state Senate Judiciary Committee, Chairman Eddie Farnsworth and his committee issued subpoenas to the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. And the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors is subject to those subpoenas but refuses to comply with those subpoenas. And the governor hasn't come in special session, so the legislature can't hold the Board of Supervisors in contempt and leverage that to get them to allow the machines and all the documents for an independent audit. And that's what I've said from the beginning. Just do an independent audit. If everything was fine in Arizona, we can say everything was fine. If there was errors and fraud, as so many people believe happened, then and that's found out, then you can correct those. And basically, that's what should have happened weeks and weeks ago.
There's a group out of Tucson that started in Tucson that do election integrity. And they're both Democrats, the two guys that we had on, and they said, if you don't let people see the ballot images of every vote, then there's something wrong with your vote.
That's exactly right. And we've heard that as well from honest brokers from both parties. They said the key is the ballot images, and that's what an independent audit would show. And I used to think these guys didn't want that independent audit simply because they've been out there saying, we're going to have a great election, blah, 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 and then we had a great election, and they just didn't want to undermine what they had said. But look, you have to acknowledge that there are questions all over the place on this. And if you do an independent audit, you could have been a hero either way. Either it was really good or or we had problems and we've identified those problems, but they didn't want to do that, and that's what I've always called for.
When the Supreme Court refused to take the Texas case, what were your thoughts when you heard what they said on why they didn't take it?
Well, those are bogus rationale. I mean, they have original jurisdiction, and they basically said, we're not going to take this case on standing. In other words, you had the wrong plaintiff. Give us a different plaintiff. And so the Trump administration was going to file under a different plaintiff. I don't know if they did or didn't, but I think SCOTUS wanted to kick it down the road. I mean, let's just face it. They would rather not be inserted in this. They didn't like what happened in the Gore v. Bush issue, but I didn't buy onto their procedural rationale for dismissing the case.
When we hear the trite phrase, every vote is sacred, what does that mean in 2021 after all of this?
Well, after all this, if we don't make changes, and when we say every vote is sacred, we mean every legal vote as well as illegal vote is sacred, apparently.
Of course, and you're right, because what angers me, Andy, is the fact that when I have judges say, well, there might have been some shenanigans, but it's not within the margin of error, so screw it, right? Well, at that point, any of those votes now are not sacred and they're crap.
That's right. So there's two things that really tick me off about that. Number one is it's an acquiescence to fraud. Okay, so what you're saying is we know there's fraud and we can't do anything about it. We're not going to try to do anything about it, and we're not going to ferret it out. But and what that does, that encourages more fraud, by the way. But the second thing is, when you look at it, it dilutes the vote of righteous votes. You know, the people who have the right to vote, their vote is actually diluted because the others, these votes that shouldn't be counted and should not have been cast, they're given the same weight as your vote and my vote, and that just can't be in a constitutional republic where you have elected representatives, the vote is sacred. It is the most important institution in a representative republic, and to allow it to be undermined, is absolutely unconscionable in my mind.
Andy, can I get you for one more segment after the break, or I don't know what your timing's like?
I'm sorry, I'm actually walking into a briefing on some more election fraud.
All right, so one last quick question and answer. Yeah. What could have the Republicans done better leading up to and through election night? And we got about a minute and a half.
First of all, we should have challenged every one of those mail-in ballot, the willy-nilly mail-in ballot states. That should have been done. In Arizona, we should never have consolidated voting locations and had the drop boxes. What you need to do is you need to get back to precinct voting. You need to get back to in-person voting as much as you possibly can. The reason for that is if you have a single precinct voting, when you go in, the people who work at those elections places, they typically will know you, and that's going to help identify the voters, and you're going to have more integrity in the vote just based on that. The other thing is, and we thought we were in good shape, we had a bunch of lawyers, but we should have done preemptory action at the front end instead of what we did, which was defensive action, and that's bad. I guess the third thing I'd say, Chris, is we have got to prevent H.R. 1, which is the last year's election law bill that Democrats wanted to pass. If that passes, Republicans will never be elected again. Ballot harvesting will be illegal. They want to register felons. They want to register underage voters and expand the age of voting to 16. All of those types of things. And we need, the fourth thing is we need our prosecutors whether it's the Attorney General or the county attorney, whoever has jurisdiction, they've got to prosecute fraud. If you do that, it will deter people from committing voter fraud.
And then who holds those prosecutors accountable if they don't prosecute?
Well, the voters do.
Right.
Because the voters, but then that gets back to the integrity of the system, doesn't it? But,
oh, no. Hey, Andy, thanks for the time, man. Good luck with everything, and we'll talk to you again soon, okay, sir?
Thanks much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andy.